attitudes are they expressing towards the war nowadays? What are they saying about the prospect of negotiations in Geneva next month? I mean, what are you hearing?
Well, many people are just sick and tired. They're just tired. This is an incredibly brutal conflict. There are more than 120,000 people who have been killed. There are cities that have been leveled. There are, children know the difference between a sniper's bullet and other forms of weaponry. This is what has happened to Syria. A lot of people just want to get on with their lives. They want to be able to send their children to school. They just want some semblance of peace. So whether that comes through negotiations or whether it comes through something else, there are a lot of Syrians who simply, they're traumatized. They've lost family members. It's a really, really dire situation. I mean, I don't know if I can describe just how difficult it is to live in some of these places. It's they just want the basics. They just want to be able to stand in line at a bakery and know that they're not going to be hit by a warplane. They just want, the things that everybody here wants.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Julie Bloom. I'm just a person who's interested. I spent some time in the Middle East helping journalists do things, and now I'm a psychotherapist. I work across the street. I follow things very closely. And I want to ask you, if you and I were having coffee, like not your job, right? What, in your opinion, which is better informed than most, is the best possible way that things could go if you could wave a magic wand on the ground now? In your opinion, what could be done by anyone, whoever, whatever? Secondly, as a therapist, I'm just curious, in refugee camps around the Middle East where people are, is there treatment for people that are obviously suffering from PTSD? Are people treating people's mental health at all, as far as you know? And finally, if someone wanted, in the United States, to organize as citizens here, not the government, to help a particular group inside Syria, such as Jabhat al-Nusra, would that be possible? If so, how? Do you know?
There are aid organizations that are trying to assist, especially children.
Some of which are in the audience, so I see CARE is present and TILAF.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely organizations, and they try through various therapies. I've seen kids who are receiving like painting therapy, where they try and just paint their feelings and things like this. So there are groups that are focusing specifically on this area of the trauma that many Syrians have experienced. Waving a magic wand, I'd just say, if you want to help the people. Just help the people. The UN says that it's very short. The pledges of assistance for the Syrian appeal, money still hasn't come in. They need money, they need help. Regardless of the politics, whether you're on one side or the other, there are people in the middle who are suffering, and the priority, I think, always has to be them.
Do you know which aid organizations are the most getting to people?
Why don't I suggest that we have a side conversation after the meeting, because there are people present that are doing aid work. We have a question here.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Rania, for your work. My name is Sidma Damasceno. I work for the Embassy of Brazil, and I was posted to Syria between 2009 and 2012, so I can relate to your testimony. I was wondering if you could comment on the role of the Kurdish movements, if you had a chance to witness their role in northern Syria.
I haven't done much reporting from the Kurdish areas because I don't speak Kurdish, and I like to be in a place where I can understand everything that's happening, especially because I go in by myself. So that's for my own security. I need to know, what's happening. But even the Kurds are split. There are so many different factions. There is a faction, for example, of the Kurdish Syrian opposition that is just joined this Islamic Front, which is not FSA, not Free Syrian Army, not an Al-Qaeda affiliate. It's a separate sort of entity. There are some who have called for autonomy in the Kurdish areas, and there are others still who are believed to still be with the regime. So it's a very fragmented picture in the Kurdish areas, but I can't really say more than that because I haven't physically been there, and I won't comment on something I haven't seen.
I'm going to take one question in the back and then ask you the last one and close it. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. It's been a great presentation. Chris Looney, CSIS. I was hoping to go back to Raqqa, and when ISIS took over in May
Raqqa?
Yes, Raqqa, yeah.
Okay.
When ISIS took over on May 14th,
Was it May?
yeah, you saw the decimation of a lot of rebel groups that had been instrumental in taking the city in the first place, most particularly Afad al-Rasul, which was, its leadership was taken out by a car bomb. But there are groups, especially Jabhat al-Nusra and Arar al-Sham, that still have a presence in the city. Some reporting has said that Arar al-Sham has a role in the administration of the city and holding up everyday life. And I was just wondering if you could comment on those two groups and what they're actually doing in Raqqa, because they are there. They don't have much strength because of ISIS, but they definitely still are there. So what is their relationship with ISIS, and what are they doing independently? And then also maybe close, I was hoping you would close possibly with just talking about the Islamic Front and how that is going to change the trajectory of the conflict. Thank you.
When Raqqa first fell, it was led by an Islamist coalition of about 6 groups, and it was spearheaded by both Jabhat al-Nusra and Ahrar al-Sham. It was a particular unit of Ahrar al-Sham called Umana al-Raqqa, and they were the group that were involved. And I remember meeting their leader a couple of weeks after it fell, and he was very proud of the fact that he had men outside the wheat silos who were protecting it, and that they were trying to organize the day-to-day running of the city, and they did do that. So that they were doing that. That man has now gone missing, believed to be abducted by ISIS. His fate is unknown. And the Jabhat al-Nusra emir has also been picked up by ISIS because he refused to pledge allegiance to them. So that might give you an idea of the kind of relationship that those two groups now have with ISIS in the city.
Right, I know the relationship, but they're still present there. Are they doing anything to counter ISIS, or are they just kind of marginal?
No, I don't think so, because when I talk to the guys who I still know who are in Jabhat al-Nusra, they're still very very wary of this group. I mean, it's a huge deal. They picked up the emir. That's not something that you do without, that doesn't have very serious consequences, and that's also an indication of just how powerful they are in the city. And the Islamic Front, earlier this month. So let me go back. So I was talking about the battalions, how we saw the formation of battalions with time. They started to coalesce and organize into brigades. They called them brigades. And then I think it was the summer of last year, we started to see the formation of coalitions, multi-brigade units, and some of these brigades were present nationwide. They had units everywhere. But we saw big coalition groups. One of them was the Syrian Liberation Front, the other one was the Syrian Islamic Liberation Front. And some of them, like the Syrian Islamic Liberation Front, which was largely outside of the FSA, the other one had groups that were inside the FSA. Earlier this month, we saw the basic dissolution of these two groups and the formation of a new one called the Islamic Front, which consists of some of the strongest groups on the ground inside Syria, and they're all outside of the FSA. So this is a new development. They're saying that it's not merely an alliance, that it's a real sort of merger, that it's not, and that it's a complete sort of program, that it's going to be military, political, and social as well. So it's in the early days of this yet, and we'll wait and see what comes of it on the ground.
So sort of following up on that, my question for you would be, part of what we're seeing, I think, all over the region is you're having uprisings where there hasn't been a history of activism or organization, and so there's a leadership vacuum amongst the opposition, and I know the Syrian opposition has been faulted for its fragmentation and so forth. But I'm wondering on the ground and amongst fighters in particular, whether or not you've seen any potential leadership emerge, and what the profile of that leadership may be.
Well, that's a very broad question, but I want to say that on the ground, there is coordination. You may not have this massive command and control that's coming from, you know, FSA leadership, but there was always coordination on a local level, either in a particular area in a town or a city or something like that, or ahead of a particular battle, you know, that they would coordinate to take out a particular airport, for example, or something like that. So you did see this local level coordination, and sometimes that would be more, sometimes it would even be province-wide. And within a group like Ahrar al-Sham, for example, there is organization, they're disciplined, and that's a nationwide group. So, you know, it depends on the particular area. I would say that, you know, you talk about the leadership opposition, and certainly many people have faulted it for that, but many in the opposition would also say, listen, you know, this is a country that didn't have any form of civil society for more than four decades, and you know, so they sort of had to learn how to be activists, how to establish themselves as civil society movements. And many in the opposition will also say, well, you know, people say we're not united. Is the West united on Syria? Is Europe united on Syria? Is the international community united on Syria? And they would sort of throw that back on the world, basically.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Rania, for chatting with us. It's been very enlightening. Thank you.